You're listening to the B&H Photography Podcast. For over 40 years, B&H has been the professional source for photography, video, audio, and more. For your favorite gear, news, and reviews, visit us at bnh.com or download the B&H app to your iPhone or Android device. Now here's your host, Alan Weitz.
Greetings and welcome to the B&H Photography Podcast. Before we get to today's guest, photographer Ashok Sinha, we have a special giveaway to announce. Most of you remember the wonderful episode we did a few months back with Jay Maisel and Stephen Wilkes, in which they talked about the making of the film Jay Maisel, a documentary made by Stephen Wilkes about the living legend himself, Jay Maisel. Well, the movie's completed and it's in theaters, and we are fortunate enough to be sponsoring a private screening of the movie right here in New York City. Here's the cool part. We have 40 free tickets to give away to listeners who can make it to the August 4th screening here in town. As a bonus, after the screening, there's going to be a Q&A with Stephen Wilkes. We're all going to be there, and we'd love to meet you, but more so, we're pleased to thank our community of listeners with this free screening and Q&A. Here's the deal. The private screening will be on Sunday, August 4th at 6 p.m. at the Film Forum Movie Theater on West Houston Street in New York City. If you are able to attend, all you have to do is say so. We have 40 tickets to give away, and we're going to be giving them away on a first-come, first-served basis, either by joining the B&H Photography Podcast Facebook group and requesting your ticket from the site, or by sending a request to podcast@bhphoto.com. A maximum of 2 tickets per person will be allocated, and please do not request a ticket if you know you cannot possibly be in town on Sunday evening, August 4th at 6 p.m. That said, feel free to pass this offer along to friends located in the New York metropolitan area, because this is a once-in-a-lifetime chance not only to see this great film, but meet Stephen Wilkes and maybe even the man himself, Jay Maisel. Again, to request a free ticket to the screening of Jay Maisel, join our Facebook group page and request a ticket, or email us at podcast@bhphoto.com. And now, on with today's show. Ashok Sinha is a well-rounded photographer and filmmaker. He makes his living shooting architecture and interior design photography, but he's also quite adept at shooting large-scale landscapes, human interest stories, and portraiture. His photographs have been widely published by editorial outlets including the New York Times, Time Magazine, Interior Design, and he's exhibited by the Museum of the City of New York, the International Center for Photography, and the Royal Photographic Society. Sinha is also the founder of the Cartwheel Initiative, a nonprofit that works with displaced and refugee youth, which empowers these young people to tell their stories through the use of photography and multimedia. Welcome, Ashok. Okay, we are joined by Ashok Sinha, and you spoke earlier about an interesting program that you're working on that is, I'm going to really summarize, I'm going to have you elaborate on it. It's putting cameras into the hands of young people who've been through some kind of trauma in their life, and it's sort of an art therapy, for lack of better words, in my understanding, to get these kids to be able to express themselves and their feelings, good and bad feelings, through photography.
Yeah, I think you summed it up pretty well. I think it's not only just therapy. It's like you said, it's giving them a voice, because we feel like cameras can be used as a tool to express, like you said, self-expression, but also tell their stories and help understand their concepts of community and home, because these young people have been through displacement and migration, and those ideas are not developed enough.
So these are primarily kids from other countries who've come here?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, this program started overseas in post-war Sri Lanka, and we worked there.
Okay.
And then from there, we brought the concepts and the learnings to New York City, where there are a lot of kids who come from, they are refugees or displaced, and they come from different countries. The sort of luxury we have in New York is that there are kids from different backgrounds, from pretty much all over the world.
You're not really alone in that sense here. No, that's for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think what we said that after working overseas, is said, how can we use those learnings to create something here in our own backyard, and where these kids are literally are nobody even knows that they exist in a lot of cases, and how can we give them this tool to give them a voice and tell them who they are, where they're from, what they're about, and more importantly, what are their experiences now that they're in the States, and what is their new home like?
How are you finding these kids? I mean, what's the central?
mechanism?
Yeah.
A lot through our partners we work with. We worked in a program in a school, in an international school in Manhattan. There's one in every borough.
Okay.
And there's a school specifically for the kids from this background. So we worked, and so that was one instance. We ran an after-school program. Then we worked with the Refugee Resettlement Agency in New Jersey for a very small workshop. And then we're constantly on the lookout for mostly grassroots organizations. Versus big organizations, because I think then our workshops are more effective, and we want to work with smaller groups.
Now, is this something you initiated, or was this a movement that you had seen starting and you just grabbed on and joined it?
No, actually, I'm the one who initiated it.
So you are the seed, okay.
Oh, yeah. And it actually came up from a very personal experience working overseas in Sri Lanka and coming back and really thinking how I could give back. Instead of just telling their stories, how I can really give back. And I was, after talking to a lot of people I knew, we had a good group of artists that we work with, and they all decided that, hey, we could put a ragtag volunteer group and maybe teach them what we know, and maybe that'll lead to something. And that led to collaboration between kids who have been through war, between kids who have been through the tsunami, and brought them together, created a sense of community. And then that concept, that idea came over to the States and said, we can take those learnings and do similar things here.
And now you needed tools to do this. Which corporations helped you out along the way?
Well, we were very lucky because of my commercial career. I come in contact with a lot of different corporations, and sometimes I don't hesitate to ask, and some people are very
turn
generous.
on the charm and you go for it.
Yeah, so go for it. Yeah, go for it. I would say in the earlier times, again, I'm on the B&H podcast, but B&H was a supporter of our program through its camera liaisons and manufacturers. We've gotten grants from the Adobe Foundation to work with. We have partners such as the Children's Museum of the Arts that we worked with in the past. We've had other nonprofits that have come together who have given us equipment. Then there are individuals who always support us. Sometimes we ran programs such as donating used cameras for a pint of beer.
Great idea.
I like that. That's one thing about the photographic community. We hear that a lot on this podcast, is that the photographic community really does pitch in all different ways. We've heard a lot of different stories of how strangers who are photographers heard about somebody having a problem or a project, and they throw in something, they give something, they add, they help.
And the first time around, did you have, let's say the first time you did this, what were the cameras that you were throwing around? Not that I'm not too worried about the cameras, but was it kind of a ragtag group or whatever you could get, and digital cameras, or was it?
Actually, we raised money. We raised money and we got donations. We got brand new point and shoot cameras. I think they were a mix of Canon and Olympus cameras, if I remember correctly. And we wanted them to be simple cameras. So certain learnings we learned is that cameras that actually ran on AA batteries were better for us than the charging ones. Because you can use them anywhere in the field. You don't have to find an outlet. In places where there's no electricity or hard to find, or when there's only one outlet and 40 cameras. So, things we learned. And those
are, in the past few years, are coming a little bit harder to find, at least the new ones anyway.
So we relied on used cameras quite a bit. And then we started also, sometimes we thought, we never got around to it, but using mobile phones, because those are easier in a way.
Everyone's got them now.
And everyone's got them. So, that's kind of what we used. And then we kind of stuck to this whole point and shoot thing, because again, it is a camera, but we didn't want the kids to get lost in the technology.
It shouldn't be about technology. Exactly. Yeah. The tool itself, it should be transparent. Okay. It's the least between you and your subject, the best.
And then we also gave them some of the things we did. We gave them smaller size memory cards, because going back to the days of film, we used to tell them, when you show a picture to the class, I want you to answer one question. Why did you take this picture? Not because you felt like it, or not because the memory card can fit in thousands of pictures. We do this as artists all the time. We want to make a statement in every little shot we do. So we want to really have them think through, saying, here, you have a roll of film, got only 24 frames on it. How do you use them wisely? And once you out of that memory card, you're done. You can't get any more. Yeah. So we relied on, and then cameras too. We didn't rely on zoom lenses.
Well, even like at Eddie Adams' workshop, which is a whole other thing.
Yeah.
As you guys know, they do a version of that too. It's like, here's your memory card, end of the day, give it back, and that's it. We take everything off
Exactly.
And in seeing the work that, the kids produce, and especially when you're looking at kids from different communities, different cultural heritages, and having gone through some similar or not quite so traumatic experiences, what kind of themes do you see running through the work that they produce? Is there anything that you can point to? And do you put them through kind of like exercises to say, okay, today let's look at shapes, tomorrow let's look at colors and things like that?
Sure. Going back to the concepts of home and community, I think portraiture is a big part of it. And also observing the unnoticed. A lot of times there'd be objects that you and me could be an object, but to them has a whole different story to it as to why. Like one of the exercises we did, like, what did you bring from your home country, and why is that important? And people and kids brought something from their home and they photographed it. Could have been a necklace, could have been whatever. They said, no, but I held on to it when I was traveling because that gave me comfort. That reminded me of home. So there are a lot of different commonalities. Landscape being landscape, it was important, but then we always tried to include some element to see why is that important? Like, are you standing in front of your house? Why here? Why not there? Why is this cool? Stuff like that.
You know what this reminds me of? What you're saying. A few weeks ago, we were talking with Ron Aviv, who has the Lost Film America project, where
Lost Rolls.
Lost Rolls. Okay,
yes, yeah.
And it's about, you find a roll of film in your drawer, send it to them and they'll develop for you, and then select a picture. And what's interesting is that some of the pictures that people selected, you'd look at me and go, what is this about? But the story that is connected to that photograph is phenomenal. And it's kind of similar to what you're saying right here. People see things and they connect on the strangest levels, and it could be a really deep feeling, and it could be a rock.
Yeah. Exactly, and I think we actually used a lot of that in terms of also developing other skills like language, English language, writing, and a lot of the captions came from their writing, which were written before. It was essays and homework assignments. Mm-hmm. So those became captions of the pictures. So there was a whole process.
It's more than just taking pictures. This is a very
storytelling.
Yeah.
It's hard work, and it's involved, and it was. I think the students did an amazing job in documenting communities and places where, nobody's seen a camera before, even like photographing their own families. They're not used to somebody coming into the homes and photographing them. You know what I mean? It's not in their culture. It's not, it was something foreign. So to even give that license, so to speak, to go into something like that, I think that was brave on the students' part. To even photograph people in the community they see every day, and the Sunday they show up with a camera and say, hey, you know what, I want to take a picture because because you're important to me as a member of my community.
It's a whole different dynamic.
That was a lot. That was a lot of guts and a lot of
Is there a venue where this work can be seen by the public?
Yeah, there's our cartwheelinitiative.org is our website, and we have a small selection of the photos and the films that were made by the kids, but. We're always looking for venues. We've done exhibitions in schools and nonprofit offices and whatnot. We've done little film festivals kind of thing in the past, but we're always looking for places.
What percentage of the students that you deal with connect with the camera? I imagine it's not everybody. Some people probably can't, but is it a high percentage? I'm assuming it is.
People connect with the camera. So we have, we also have done in the past animation projects where it is not necessarily taking photos, but using the camera as to take pictures to create animation.
Yeah.
So some kids who are more into drawing, they use the camera in that fashion. But some of the kids who are into, like I would say, there's something interesting about people in cameras or kids with cameras. They immediately become different people, and they start noticing things that sometimes are not directed. And they just go to completely different personalities. So like a shy kid in the beginning of the semester, the same kid at the end of the semester would not hesitate to go up and show his entire presentation to the class or to the school. So they really connect with, because it's also very instant, right? And they get the instant gratification, feedback, whatever you call it. But some of the kids, like the ones with the animation pieces, take 15 pictures to make 1 second of film. Yeah. And that's tedious.
That's a lot of dedication.
Yes.
And some good skills to start learning.
Yeah,
too,
and some kids are just like like that. They just like to be focused and doing. But the element of collaboration is there everywhere because you're making the films together. If you're taking photographs, you do it in groups, you edit it together, and you show the work together. So there's, regardless, if you didn't want to talk to somebody, you'd have to, because that's the nature of the project.
Which is also obviously a great skill and one that photography can teach you. And obviously for kids who are dealing with stuff and trying to find new homes, incredibly important.
Yeah,
wonderful. Can you kind of tell us where your professional work blended into the project, and then we can maybe walk back to some of your professional work? Yeah.
So
was there a time and place?
Well, I mean, at that time I was doing more editorial work, and that led to my assignment. That led to me being in Sri Lanka to do this project.
Okay.
Nowadays, I do a lot more commercial work.
Where's home base? Where do you do most of your work?
New York City.
All right.
But I was on assignment in Sri Lanka for a client, and that was more editorial, and that led to that.
Right.
Okay.
And then I work mostly commercially now, and then a lot of my work is in either in advertising or mostly commercial architecture work, interiors work, which is different from what I did. But I never forgot my sensibilities. Say, for example, my days of working photographing for the Times, I still have to turn in something and not have any excuses.
Right.
I just consider every assignment like that. So I think my sensibilities are still the same. My clients are different. And honestly, I really enjoy what I do. I really have a love for design and architecture, and that is really manifested from my years of working editorial and picking and choosing. And then the other stuff, I still have fine artwork, which I work through galleries and whatnot, which I show. So I try to maintain a decent and balanced artistic career.
Sounds wonderfully balanced.
I try.
You're having your cake and you're eating it too. It's kind of neat.
And helping out on the side, which is good. Doing a good thing.
I try.
Yeah, that's wonderful. So, but you at least from how I've found your work, you're introducing yourself as much as an architectural photographer as anything else, correct?
Correct.
And you have a series that you've been working on, and it's now turned into a book. So,
the last few years have been kind of working in architecture, and again, as all artists would tell you, the real work is the personal work. And what I've been working, I go to Los Angeles quite a bit, and I've been going there for the last decade or so. And what really I'm also a car guy, which is aside from my photography. I love cars, and LA is really a car city. And I just love that whole culture of it. But but what I've started noticing in the last few years was the architecture that was built for the car. At a time where surface streets were important before highways came by, and there's these buildings and whatnot that were essentially built to draw your attention to the design and bring you in, so to speak.
As you're driving by, it's more about the design element to get your attention.
Correct.
As a driver.
The buildings and the cars had fins.
Correct.
Once upon a time.
Yes. And it's true.
But I know in certain places that I've been, there certain structures, and I'm sure you know this, are designed specifically for their access, their exits, their ingress and egress for autos, right? And I'm sure you've seen that all the time.
Yeah, there are buildings like that. I mean, there's a building, a photograph called the Donut Hole. It's actually a donut you drive through, and you come out the other side with a cup of coffee.
And then you have all the drive-ins, which are essentially like plug your car in and unplug when you're finished.
Sure. And then I focus on this whole original design in this series, and it had to be built in a certain period, and it's still working as a business, which is a big component. It's not relics of the past, so to speak. So I've tried to approach these sites only in Greater Los Angeles from a completely design and architecture perspective, as to why it was important and why perhaps as we move to a whole other driverless society. What does this become? Yeah. How does urban planning become and whatnot, right?
So taking it to another level. It's not just like another roadside attraction.
Yeah, exactly.
Have you ever been to Wildwood, New Jersey?
Yes, I have.
Because it's a natural for what you do.
Yes, it is. But at the same time, like I try to keep it because LA was the original car city. And things were built there for especially for that population, which is still used today. I mean,
And have you noticed some reasons why a business, and I'm sure there's many, has been able to sustain or maintain itself in this kind of original form or original idea where others have passed away?
Sure, I think it's still become relevant to the community. I think a lot of these places were also gathering places for the community, and the community soon realized that since these were disappearing, they had to do something to keep them around. And so there was a whole movement around this design preservation, and still is. I mean, not all of them are protected, and I hope that this work will kind of lend into that a little bit. But I think people realize that, yes, good design is important. And just a box with something is not that attractive. You got to have something else to make it a vibrant community. So I think certain businesses have survived only because of that. Some businesses have been lucky because they have patrons who are powerful and they said this has to be maintained because this is who we are. Yeah. You know, again, signature of a community. You know?
Any examples, like some buildings you can talk about?
Sure. You know, like, for example, there is the Norms on La Cienega Boulevard in Los Angeles, and it's iconic because there's been paintings, there's been work done in the past. There's iconic signage, there's lighting, there's this design, and it was actually under the threat of demolition, and the community came together and said, no, we have to protect this. You know, like even the oldest McDonald's, which is still in operation in Downey, California, that is there because there was a reason for it to be preserved. Because in the design element, it was owned by the brothers and wasn't demolished. The first two are no longer there. But this is the oldest operating McDonald's today.
And but it would still be operating as a business. They probably would have changed the design for some purpose if it hadn't been.
There was a lot of pressure to actually make it updated, so to speak. Yeah. But then they kept it.
And it thank goodness.
Yes, thank goodness, right? Yeah. And there's, you know, like there are coffee shops and whatnot which are simply there because of this reason. And what I want to do with my work is that I want people to go out and discover these things, not only in Los Angeles, but also in their own backyard.
Oh, yeah.
You know, because there's so many things like that.
Seek and you shall find.
Yes.
Absolutely. I have a question about the photographs that I've seen are all square. And I found that it was kind of interesting that you chose a square. I mean, square is kind of good because it's square. You could sort of fit things in. But a lot of the subjects that you're photographing, the buildings and the cars, are really horizontal. Is there a reason why you went for a square format?
I would say it's not exactly square-ish.
Square. Oh, okay.
Square-ish.
Right. Square-ish.
The reason is because I photographed in a way. I'm using a lot of tilt-shift lenses, and I make it into a certain. I want to make it into a certain shape.
Gotcha.
And a lot of the times when I'm photographing them, they lend to that shape, and I feel like it captures the field of view I want to capture.
Which cameras are you shooting with?
I shoot with Canon lenses and cameras.
Okay, so you are shooting. It's basically they are mostly horizontal images that you're cropping, and the tilt shift corrects there. Because again, there's no keystoning. This stuff is correctly rendered.
Because these are not just one image. These are tilt shift images that are built together to make into one image.
Okay.
Can you talk a little bit about that process?
Sure. So, you know, as in tilt shift, for example, the biggest thing as architectural work we deal with is perspective.
Yes.
And perspective correction. Yes, it can be done in post. You know, we all do it once in a while.
But there's nothing like doing it in the camera.
Which I learned, is my long, you know, my core of what I understand is photographers to just do it right in front of you. Because then even if you do something later on, things are much better, easier, less expensive, looks a lot better. Again, I think there's some some trueness to that craft, you know?
Of course, yeah.
So when I photograph it, I want to do it the right way to maintain that perspective and also that angle of view so that I'm not guessing that I have to shoot wide and then I have to like tilt it back in post and I lose some of the foreground and I lose some of the sky. No. This is exactly the way I'm seeing things. And this is how I want to photograph. I'll give you a small side story. At the very beginning, because I shoot a lot of 4x5 stuff, and I used to actually have, when I first digital camera I was shooting with, I used to have a mask on like a focusing screen mask that I would use to photograph. And then I would just use that as a crop on my final pictures because that's how I saw it. That's how I want to do it. Right. I don't want any extra thing around it. So I just work like that.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Cool. Interesting.
How many photos will you take how many images will you take per photo? How do you want to call it? Per image?
So it depends. It's a balance of not only perspective correction, it also is a balance of highlights and shadow management. So you can't get everything in one shot.
Right.
You know, I'm shooting a lot of these pictures you've seen. It's probably at dusk sometimes.
Yeah, you go for the
nighttime.
magic hour a lot. Yep.
Yeah. So to maintain that, I try to, you know, maybe have exposures for highlights and for shadows, and again for perspective. So, and then that gets sort of painted. Back in the old darkroom days, I would kind of paint, and I would paint light into where I needed to, but not create it digitally, but I would treat them as pieces to a puzzle and put them together to show this is how I want the picture to be. I mean, our eyes are amazing cameras. Unfortunately, cameras can replicate that.
Our eyes do much better our brains and eyes do much better corrections than any camera at all.
And I'm wondering, like,
Do you find that less necessary with the newer cameras, the newer digital cameras, with such good shadow recovery and highlight recovery and so forth?
I find that less necessary, but not in extreme conditions.
Yeah.
I think when the light levels are pretty within the range, I mean, it's a lot less, and I'm amazed how much highlight recovery I can do these days.
Yeah.
You know, which was once it was in the highlight was considered gone, and now I'm like, wow, it's still there. So to your point, yeah, I think the better. One thing I look in a camera is how much dynamic range it has.
Yeah, me too. I'm a landscape guy, so
Yeah.
and do you? I don't know if label is the right word, but do you consider the images differently when let's say you're doing a job for an architectural client who really, whether it's a photo, a true photo, or a composite of photos, maybe it's not quite so important as it would be if it was an editorial decision. Does that come into play a lot?
Sure.
In what you're making?
Yeah. So, for example, if I shoot a design story for a magazine, a lot of the times we're capturing images which are they're carefully composed, but not carefully technically executed in a sense, because we're trying to do a lot more, or these are meant to be like that because we're trying to show the more sense of place in a way, in an editorial way, right? So then there's a little bit of that. If it's like really bright outside and it's not that bright inside, there's a little bit of that. But a lot of times it's okay for editorial. However, for a design client, you know, it's a given that you have to have look. You know,
And
things
just
a certain
for the
way.
sake of that, do you refer to both of them as photographs?
Yes, I do refer to both of them as photographs. I think the second one, there's a little bit more sort of technical work versus the first one. But you know, the way we look at things don't change. I think that's the biggest thing. You know, at the end of the day, is that your framing is a lot of it, right? And how you see light is a lot of it. How you light things. I mean, okay, the editorial stuff we don't necessarily light all the time because we're using, and that's when those cameras come in as helpful. Because we're trying to show the story. I mean, we're trying to show the story as a design client too, but there's a lot of technical perfection that has to happen in addition to telling the story.
Sure.
Right. It's one thing. It's a correction. It sounds like the way you're describing it as more of a correction than like using it as a expressive tool. Am I wrong?
We're in both scenarios. We're still expressing the essence of the place,
Right.
You know, the design of the place, the use of the place, how it looks, why it is a certain way. But the level of production is different. There's more production behind certain pictures, given the audience of that picture, whereas the other one is lesser production because that's what is expected. If it's too produced, then it loses the essence of being.
It doesn't look like a news photo. It doesn't look like a documentary
the format
photo.
that they're meant for.
Exactly.
To some degree.
Exactly.
The output. Yeah. Wow, this conversation went all over the place.
Yeah.
I like it. Yeah. So tell us, unless you have any more questions.
No, what do you do in your spare time?
I've been trying to think that. I've been trying to pick up my guitar again.
Okay.
But it's been a struggle. I used to play a lot.
Yeah.
Now I try to, I don't know, between my work and my family, running fine art work and whatnot. Sometimes I feel, somebody asked me the question the other day, like, what's your hobby? And I was like, oh my God, I'm one of those people that like really work all the time.
Yeah,
but
but no.
work
There's a difference
Yeah,
though, because your work you do with a passion,
Which is-
okay?
yeah.
And there's a blur. I mean, let's face it, you are living your hobby to a certain extent.
True, absolutely.
Okay.
I asked my
Hope so,
wife.
anyway.
she'll
And how
say
many
that.
people get paid for their hobby?
Yes. That's what I mean. Sometimes I feel like the whole, I meet a lot of photographers and I'm like, yeah, although like a lot of the work we do to run a studio is non-glamorous work.
Exactly.
Right. However, the passion is what drives all that.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, man, you're living your life.
You're doing what you want to do, and
Yeah.
that's the beauty of it.
Sounds
Yeah.
like it. And you have many little projects going on, and they're in varied aspects of photography, and you're giving back and all that stuff. So
Exactly.
good job.
Thank you very much.
When's the book
Okay.
coming out?
Yeah.
Tell us about the book, where we can find it. and
Well, the
all that
book,
stuff.
hopefully, we're hoping for end of fall. We're, given it's my first book and like my first child, I mean, I'm extra careful. And I'm somebody told me you're
Don't drop it.
overthinking it. It's done. Let's go ahead with it. And I'm like thinking, I think a little bit left, but hopefully this fall and the holidays, it'll come out. We have a title, I think, called
us.
A Driver-Full City. Not the driverless, but the driver-full city.
Okay, all right, I like that.
And is there a publisher that we can look to when the time comes?
Yeah, there is a publisher. There are a couple of publishers in the
we're
works.
waiting to see how it works.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, you
Okay.
come back and you'll tell us when it's
Yeah.
out. Good.
Absolutely.
We'll
We'd
look
love
forward
to.
it.
Yeah,
And,
love
and
to.
the websites and stuff, tell us where people can see your photos.
So they can go to my website, my name Ashok, and then prints prints.com.
Okay.
That's my fine art and my fine art landscape work.
Mm-hmm.
And if they go to ashoksinha.com, they can see my commercial architectural
And that's
work.
ASHOKSINHA.
That's correct.
All right.
Cool.
Ashok, thank you so much for joining us. It was
Thank you.
really
Thanks
good
so much.
talking with you.
Yeah.
Very
Thank you very
interesting.
much.
Good job, man. Thank you.
Pleasure.
Okay, that's a wrap of another show. If you are not a subscriber to the B&H Photography Podcast, what are you waiting for? You can subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Overcast, and Spotify. It's free. And you can always find us on the B&H Explorer website and the B&H Photography Podcast Facebook group, and tell them that Al sent you. For now, on behalf of Jason, John, and myself, thank you so much for tuning in today.